All right, thanks for joining me. We are looking at the Hurricanes NCAA Tournament Bracket Challenge 2019 version. Just finished the selections show. I don't know why it takes an hour to announce 64 teams. That's a little ridiculous. But we went through the entire thing. Some really interesting choices. For those of you who don't know, how the NCAA tournament works is it's exactly like March Madness. So there are 64 teams, 32 automatic qualifiers who win their respective conferences, and then 32 teams chosen by the selection committee as at-large bids. They get placed into a giant bracket, single elimination, and through 6 rounds of matches over the course of 3 weeks, a national champion is crowned. So looking forward to breaking down this bracket. Now, one thing to note is this is the least NCAA volleyball I've watched in like 7 years. So please note that these predictions will be terrible and extremely biased, and I'm wearing a BYU shirt right now. So definitely picking them a lot further than they should be going. I think they could lose second round, to be honest, but we've got to do some homer picks. So for those of you who want to participate in the bracket challenge, you can go to challenge. That is the word challenge, but with an O instead of the E. challenge.com/HRVC2019. You can see that at the top of the screen. And you'll see something that looks like this. I've already inputted the teams, so all you have to do is click the big green create a prediction button, and you fill out a bracket. Whoa. Fill out a bracket, and then submit your pick once you've filled out the entire bracket, and that's all you have to do. All right. I'll just check my messages quickly. Let's get started. So Baylor was given the number 1 seed. I've watched them play a couple times this year. Very deserved number 1 team. They did get swept by Texas. There are 0 undefeated teams in all of NCAA volleyball this year. So if you were watching the selection show, they talked a lot about how much parity there is in the field, and that's a really big example of it. In the preseason, there were a huge amount of upsets. So I don't believe there will be one here, though, so we'll pick Baylor over Sacred Heart. Next, we have SF Austin against USC. So Stephen F. Austin, they are one of the few one-loss teams in the entire tournament. And they play in the Southland Conference, so not a very strong conference, but they did win it, went 31-1, incredibly strong team. USC plays in the Pac-12. Their record was 17-12, and what's really interesting about NCAA volleyball is the teams that lose the least are not necessarily the strongest, because some conferences like the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are so strong that you can expect really, really good teams to have 5 or 6 losses even. So I'm going to pick USC over here as they're a little bit more battle tested. They've got 2 awesome pins in Cleo Lanier and Brooke Botkin, and I just think that they have more than Stephen F. Austin can offer. Next we have Purdue and Wright State. So Purdue, they are a Big Ten team, and Maya Newton, who plays for our 17s team, her cousin is their standout outside hitter. Caitlin Newton, she's a really good player. Wright State, this is the first time ever that they've been in the NCAA tournament. They play in the Horizon League. I think that is, Green Bay was really good in that league this year, and they were expected to win, but Wright State upset them. So this is sort of a Cinderella story. I think that tale ends in the NCAA tournament. Marquette at Dayton. So Marquette had a really, really good preseason. I watched a couple of their games. They do some really interesting 6-2 stuff in order to get their star right side, Ali Barber, the ball on the left. they've sort of fallen off in the past few weeks. I'm not sure if anyone's injured or if teams have sort of figured out their shtick. They run a lot of slide two in every rotation. They've got a left side hitter who basically only hits two balls. So it's sort of an interesting way to play. And they are playing Dayton, and I think Dayton plays in the AAC. Let me just look that up. The Atlantic 10, excuse me. And I think they won their conference this year. Historically a good team, but Marquette a little bit too strong for them. So we'll pick Marquette to go on to the second round. All right. Next we have Kentucky at Southeast Missouri State. Kentucky, I believe they ended up winning a share of the SEC title along with Florida. But they had a bunch of weird losses along the way. They lost to Georgia, and they've looked really bad at times from what I've seen. I still think they're a lot stronger than Southeast Missouri. Then we've got Northern Kentucky. What things can we say about them? So they play in the Horizon League as well. So that's the same league that I just talked about Wright State being in. And I don't know a whole ton about them, to be honest. They are up against Michigan. Michigan is quite a strong team. I watched them play like 3 or 4 weeks ago with Adam. Who are they up against? Illinois. They beat Illinois twice, I think. Paige Jones is an awesome outside hitter. They've got a good setter as well. Their L2 is very strong. So picking Michigan over Northern Kentucky. Washington and Winthrop. I actually don't know how to pronounce this. It was said some way differently on the selection show. But Washington, they play in the Pac-12 as well. We just talked about USC being a Pac-12 team. They are a cool gold medal square type team. Keegan Cook does some interesting stuff with them. They had a really strong season beating Stanford in their first matchup, but they've also lost some really weird games. I think they lost to Washington State twice, at home and away, which is crazy. Maybe Washington State is a lot stronger than I had thought, but I still think they'll get through Winthrop. Winthrop is a Big South team, which is historically one of the weaker conferences in all of NCAA. Colorado State and South Carolina. Colorado State is a really strong program historically. There was an athlete who played for Leaside, graduated in 2012, who spent 4 years down there. I forget her name. She was a middle blocker there, so I used to watch a bunch of their games. They play in the Mountain West Conference. They're 29-1 this year, so they've only lost one match, winning their conference, of course. So they're up against South Carolina. South Carolina plays in the SEC. I don't know too much about them. I haven't watched any of their matches, but I think Colorado State gets past them. Nebraska and Ball State. So Nebraska was in the national final last year. 2 years ago, they won the national championship. So a really storied program, not just in recent years, but of course, like since when you think of NCAA volleyball, Nebraska volleyball is one of the programs that first comes to mind. They have thousands of people at their games. Their players are basically like small celebrities in Nebraska. So I watched them play against Penn State this year, 3 or 4 weeks ago. They beat them in 5 sets. It was a really close match. Lexi Sun is playing a lot better this year. She was the #1 recruit in the country. She's a junior now after transferring from Texas her freshman year. And I had considered her like a little bit overrated because she's like hitting 150, but this year she's hitting above 200 for sure. Above 250 last time I checked her stats. So she's playing very well. They've got Lauren Stivrins, who I think might be the best middle in the country. Definitely the best slide hitter in the country. She's very good. Mackenzie Knuckles is their libero. Jazz Sweet plays some right side for them, although she's a bit inconsistent, and I'm not quite sure who their M2 and L2 are. But Nebraska, a very well-rounded team, very good blocking, good defense, good outside hitters. Ball State plays in the Mid-American Conference. So that's the one with like Buffalo, I believe. And they are, I think, conference champions. That's usually who gets matched up against the top 8 seeds. Haven't really seen them play this year, unfortunately, but we're going to pick Nebraska. Northern Iowa and Missouri. Again, unfortunately, neither team I've watched that much. Northern Iowa plays in the Missouri Valley Conference, so that is the conference with Indiana State, where Chloe Carenza used to play and Caitlin Genovi coaches right now. So they have 2 teams in the tournament. UNI is historically a really strong team. I don't know if they won their conference this year. I didn't ask Caitlin when we were just talking. But Missouri plays in the SEC. This could be sort of upset because Missouri is favored, but I think Northern Iowa could upset them. Why don't we pick Northern Iowa for this one? We'll pick a little bit of an upset. All right. Hawaii and Northern Colorado. I think Hawaii is easily the most overrated top 16 seeded team. However, they are pretty good. They're playing at home and they have a huge home court advantage, not just because they've got thousands of rabid fans like Nebraska, but also because they, like, you got to fly hours and hours to get to Hawaii, right? So if these teams aren't super prepared for that, I think it can be really tough for them. And so the 4 teams that you see here, Hawaii, Northern Colorado, San Diego, Washington State, those matches will all be played at Hawaii. So Hawaii, 26-3, Big West Conference winners. They beat Washington earlier in the year, and I was previously saying how good I thought Washington was. So they are up against Northern Colorado, who are from the Big Sky Conference. That is Montana's conference. So Carly Anderson, who plays for our 17s team, but is graduating this year, she's headed to that school. I think Northern Colorado crushed that conference, actually. But when they're up against a better team in Hawaii, I don't think they'll be able to win. San Diego and Washington State. Oh my gosh. I think San Diego is so good. Washington State is a terrible matchup. This is one of the toughest first round games. I think the 2 of the highest ranked teams playing each other, actually. I just got a message. If you guys have any questions, you can write in chat, or you can shoot me a text or Slack message. I'm checking my phone. So Mandy said, oh, she's commenting. Yes, Alex Paletto was the athlete I was thinking of who played at Colorado State. Thank you. And Kenzie Maloney graduated. So she was asking if Kenzie Maloney is not Nebraska's libero anymore. She graduated last year, and another Kenzie Knuckles from Munciana, is their new libero. Okay, so as I was saying, San Diego against Washington State. San Diego beat BYU twice this year to win the WCC, their conference. Washington State just beat Washington yesterday. They're really good. I'm going to pick San Diego, but I think this is a really tough match. I think whoever wins the San Diego-Washington State match also beats Hawaii. So I'm going to pick San Diego for the next round as well. Texas A&M at St. John's. So St. John's plays in the Big East Conference. That's the one with Creighton, Marquette, also DePaul, which is where Phoenix Lee is heading next year. St. John's beat both Creighton and Marquette in huge upsets to win the conference championship in their tournament. So they're riding on a really hot streak. I don't know if they've figured something out or if Creighton or Marquette just didn't play that well. I didn't watch the games. So not knowing anything, if they've like unlocked the secret of volleyball, I'm gonna pick Texas A&M over them. Texas A&M plays in the SEC. They have this crazy server. Their OH1 is like one of the best servers in the country. She hits a hybrid and she just bombs it. They'll be at home hosting the first 2 rounds as well, so will be comfortable for them to play. Oklahoma and Rice. So Oklahoma plays in the Big 12 conference. They went 19-8 this year. Rice are conference championships of CUSA, going 26-3. They beat Texas in the preseason, I believe. And I think they're really underrated. Oklahoma's the bigger name, but I think Rice wins this match. All right. Continuing on, we've got Wisconsin and Illinois State. So Wisconsin just beat Penn State 2 nights ago. No, they lost to Penn State 2 nights ago. Yes. They were going to... I think they won the Big Ten championship, but Penn State was going to have a share of that until they lost to Minnesota last night. That's what happened. So Wisconsin, they've got 6'8" Dana Retke, and they've got pretty good ball control. They managed to set her like 30 to 40 balls a match, which is pretty incredible for a middle hitter. And Sydney Hilly's a very athletic setter, maybe not the best location, but she's still very good. They've got Molly Haggerty and Grace Loberg, 2 6'2", 6'4", like big athletic left side hitters. So they're a very strong team. They have had some weird losses this year. Let's see. I think they've lost like 7 games already. 6 games. They're 22-6. They're one of the top teams in the Big Ten. So we'll pick them over Illinois State. Illinois State, they play in the Missouri Valley Conference. So that is, again, Caitlin Genovi's conference along with UNI, who we just talked about. They went 22-11 this year, got the at-large bid. Good team, but I don't think they can stand to Wisconsin. UCLA at Notre Dame. UCLA is 18-11, so 11 losses is one of the largest numbers for any team that is in the tournament, but they are really good. They've got this kid, I think it's Savi Simo is her name, and she plays L2 for them. She's basically a second libero on the court, just incredible ball control left side. If you're a 5'10"-ish kid who wants to play the game at the highest levels, you should watch her because she is an awesome player. So they're up against Notre Dame, who plays in the ACC, a little bit of a weaker volleyball conference. They're more of like a basketball conference, right? They do some cool gold medal squared stuff as well. Jim McLaughlin used to coach there. They've had a really good season, first time in the tournament in many years for them, but I will pick UCLA here. Stanford and Denver. So Stanford, they are returning national champions. All of their starters pretty much are seniors. So you've got Catherine Plummer, of course, the 6'6" National Player of the Year last year. Morgan Hentz, libero. Who else? Fitzmaurice, who has moved to right side. Jenna Gray, the setter. So this incredible recruiting class that has already won 2 national championships in their freshman and junior years returns to take it on for their senior year. Stanford has actually lost a bunch of matches already. They're 24-4, so not a bunch, but more than expected. I thought they were going to go undefeated this year. Part of that is they've really struggled with injuries to Keefe, Plummer. Fitzmaurice has dealt with a back issue, so we'll see how healthy they are come tournament time. But they seem to be peaking at the right times, and like what a way to end their careers if they could win a 3rd national championship. So they're up against Denver. Denver plays in the Summit League. They were conference champions there. I don't know too much about them. I have seen them play, but like 5 years ago, so that's not super relevant. So I'll pick Stanford. Georgia and Cal Poly. I wonder if the those sisters are still playing at Cal Poly. I forget their names. The Van somethings. They're very good, but they might be just going beach only now. So Georgia, Tom Black, gold medal squared, Team Canada. Half my family went to Georgia. Dennis's daughter goes to Georgia, so we're going to pick them for no reason other than the things I listed. No volleyball reasons. But they've actually done really well this year. I think this is their first time going to the tournament since Tom Black has been head coach. And they've beaten Kentucky this year, who were SEC champions, and they were really close with Florida. I think that match went to 5. Okay. Cal Poly, Big West school. Vanessa Roscoe goes there, but on the beach program, so doesn't really have a big relationship to their indoor, but they're quite good. They were better last year, though, I think. BYU, again, wearing this BYU shirt. Against New Mexico State. I believe Savannah Davison plays at New Mexico State, the Durham Attack, Scarborough Titans, Aurora Storm product. She tore her ACL. Is she playing this year? I think so. She tore her ACL before her freshman year, but she was back and she had a really good year last year. I heard she was injured this year, but I could be wrong. Let me just check on that. Individual stats. Savannah Davison. Oh yeah, she's playing. 3.54 kills per set, hitting 231. That's awesome. She's very undersized. She's like 5'8". Cool. BYU is still a better team. I watched like 15 BYU matches last year, and I've only watched 2 this year. I think I've been a little more focused on coaching, I guess, and really watching video of our league. So, yeah, haven't watched as many BYU games. Just as a primer for them, they've got Mary Lake, who I think is one of the best liberos in the country, if not the best. They have a freshman setter who's 17 years old. She graduated school a year early, reclassified Whitney Bauer, and she plays like way beyond her years. She's a little bit undersized, but plays really great defense, great server, lefty. McKenna Miller is in her senior year after suffering pretty traumatic ACL tear in November of last year. She made it back for the beginning of the season, and she's hitting quite well. They've got some good middle production in junior Kennedy Eschenberg and sophomore Heather Knighting, although Knighting, who was National Freshman of the Year last year, is not having as good of a season this year. Utah and Illinois. Again, a very interesting matchup. 2 big-name programs, 2 very highly ranked teams. Illinois started off the season really strong, but they lost a bunch of matches in the Big Ten. They were one of the last teams in the tournament. 22-11 is their record. Utah is an awesome team. They play in the Pac-12, 22-9, one of the top teams in that really tough league. So we're going to pick Utah. Penn State at Princeton. Princeton is the Ivy League champion. Penn State, the Big Ten second place team this year. I think 3 teams were tied for second, actually. So Penn State, they've got Canadian Tori Gorell. She's in her final year, redshirt senior. They moved her from middle to an outside hitting position, although she only plays 3 rotations. And last time I watched her, she played 1 left side rotation and 2 right side rotations. Really cool to see her take a bigger role kind of year over year. Last year she played middle and kind of sat for parts of the year behind 2 freshmen. This year they've moved her to the pin, and she's been really successful. So it's cool to see. I remember 2013, 2014 season, she was playing a little left side for Defensa, and we would go play against her when she was doing that. So it's cool to see that kind of come full circle. She had a really big game against Wisconsin, like hit very, very well, and she even played well in the loss to Minnesota. So I'm excited to watch her play. As the year's gone on, she's been a bigger part of their offense. They've got Johnny Parker, who's their go-to hitter, and then Kendall White, who I don't know. People really like to talk up Kendall White. She's not my favorite libero, but I think she's good. I just don't really like the way she plays. I got some really hilarious Penn State stories 2 months ago that I can't say on stream, but if you want, you can ask me about them later. Okay, so all that to say, we're picking Penn State over Princeton. American University at Towson. So American, I think they're the Patriot League. Yeah, they're the Patriot League champions. And Towson are the Colonial Athletic Association champions. Towson, of course, home to Hurricanes alum Danielle Gravina. They've had an awesome season. They went 28-2, only 2 losses. I believe both of them coming in the preseason. Maybe they lost one conference game only, but they just wrecked everyone in the Colonial, and I believe they'll win this game here. So it's going to be awesome for Danielle to experience the NCAA tournament. I know she's gone and watched it before, but for her to be a part of it will be really cool. I guess the Gravinas will probably go down, and because Penn State's hosting, they can drive and watch. Hopefully they get to that second round match, and Danielle and her team will have a chance to play against Penn State, which would be awesome. Yes. Nikki's texting me. They will inverse American. No, I think they're going to win. I think they're the better team, actually. Nikki, you can tell me if you are going to those matches, actually. And if you do, please take lots of photos and wish Danielle good luck for me. Yeah. Pittsburgh and Howard. So Pitt, they announced the 4 seeded teams, the top 4 seeded teams, which were, what were they? It was Stanford, Texas, Baylor, and Wisconsin on Twitter at 5 p.m. And Pittsburgh fans were just outraged. They were so mad. I know a bunch of us coaches were like laughing about the comment chains that were happening. So Pitt, they split with Penn State this year. They are a really good team. They do some gold medal scored stuff, so I've got some bias towards them. Jim Fisher is their head coach. Lane Van Buskirk is one of their starting middles from South County, I believe that's where she played. And Sadie Dick is one of their recruits from Pac-Man, mostly from Niagara, who just played there. And so Pitt is up against Howard. Howard plays in the MEAC, which is perhaps the worst conference in the NCAA. So I'm going to pick Pitt. Cincinnati at Virginia Commonwealth. So I haven't watched either of these teams play this year, although I've seen them in the past. Cincy has that legacy kid who's 5'8" that just like wrecked us 3 years ago when we played them at the JVA Rock and Rumble. They play in the American Athletic Conference, the AAC. I think they won their conference, 25-6 record. Virginia Commonwealth is in the A10, along with Dayton, the runners up there. We're going to pick Cincinnati. VCU, one of the Adler twins used to play there. Julia, the lefty. I think she's graduated now. All right, the last portion of the bracket. Nikki says she is going to go watch, so that's awesome. Minnesota at Fairfield. So Fairfield, home to 2 Hurricanes alum, Nia Jones, freshman middle blocker, and Sonia Radulovic, senior outside hitter / DS, captain this year. Excited to see Sonia in the tournament. I think she was in the tournament all 4 years. No, they didn't make it last year because Iona beat them. So 3 out of the 4 years, Fairfield has won the conference tournament and has been in the NCAA tournament as a result. I've watched them play a bunch this year. Their setter is awesome, Manuela Nicolini. They've got a couple of good outside hitters, Maida Garcia, Laura Seeger, Julia Kellen, Sonia, of course. A right side lefty, Joelle Bates, I think is her name, who's quite good. Minnesota, led by Stephanie Samedi. Their setter has been injured for most of the year, but she's back now. Kylie Miller from UCLA, the transfer. They've got Cece McGraw, who I think is one of the best liberos in the country. And who's that kid? Adonna Rollins, left side hitter, along with Alexis Hart. Hugh McCutcheon doing that Team USA gold medal squared stuff. As much as I love Fairfield and Sonia, we're going to pick Minnesota here. Iowa State and Creighton. Iowa State just recruited Julia Capone, who plays for Aurora Storm 18s. Libero U is their nickname. They play in the Big 12. Creighton in the Big East. Close schools geographically. I think they might have played each other this year. They usually do that in preseason. Creighton was supposed to win the Big East, got upset by St. John's. I still think they're the better team. Picking Creighton. Florida at Alabama State. Alabama State is a pretty weak team. I would say one of the weaker conference champions. They go up against Florida, who I thought were going to be really good this year. They've got like Taylor Hall. They've got that 6'8" kid, Kramer, in the middle. They've got one of the Monserrat sisters setting. Like, it looks really good on paper, but hasn't really panned out for them. I still think they're better than Alabama State, but I don't know how far they're going to go in this tournament. UCF against Florida State. This is like very much a similar bracket to what happened last year. Florida, UCF, Florida State are always in the same sub-regional, and it's kind of tough because only one of them can make it into the third round. So UCF, American Athletic Conference, I don't think they won, but they were really good. That's Alex Kells' conference. Florida State plays in the ACC. This is a really close match. I haven't really watched either team play. It's a pick'em. We'll go with UCF here. Western Kentucky against Kennesaw State. So Western Kentucky is one of the best mid-major programs in the country. Like, they're always really good without having very much recruiting, and it's incredibly confusing to me how they're good all the time. Their coach, I forget his name. They made a really big tournament run last year, and he does some pretty interesting things. They set their middle high and their pins really fast. Like, more so than even teams you might be used to seeing that. Like, their middles are like 2 balls or like 2.5. They're basically sky balls, and then they set their pins like super laser fast. So interesting team. They are up against Kennesaw State, who plays in the Atlantic Sun. I think they're the conference champions there. We'll pick Western Kentucky. Samford and Louisville. Samford conference championships of the SoCon, I believe. That is Charlotte Dean's school. And Michaela Reeser, who was a Defensa alum, like Burlington product. Michaela's from Orangeville, actually. Anyways, so a couple kids who played in the region, either played at or are currently playing at Samford. They are up against Louisville, who is a really good team this year. They've always been historically strong, but they had a coaching change in the last season or two, and since then they've really been on the come up. So we're going to pick Louisville. All right, last matches of the first round. Texas at Albany. Texas, their ball control has actually improved a lot. Typically, Texas teams can't pass or defend, and they just set moon balls to their giant left side hitters. That's a little bit different now. Their setter is like a 5'8" kid, and that's interesting because she's setting over one of the top recruits in the country, in Ashley Shook, who's like 6'1", 6'2". So like Ashley Shook is playing DS or serving sub or something like that, and she's only playing back row while their 5'8" setter plays through the front. So who do they have? Breon Butler, really good hitter. They've got, what's her name? Micaiah White, who is a senior this year. She must be. I feel like I've been watching her play for like 6 years. But one of the best outside hitters in the country. Yeah, I think they just smoke Albany. Albany comes from the NAC, I think, NEC. They won, American East is their conference, and they won that conference. UCSB at Texas State. I don't really know anything about these teams either. So Santa Barbara, they're from the Big West. That's a lot of teams from the Big West. Cal Poly, UCSB, and Hawaii. Adam and I watched a random match. I think it was UC Irvine against someone else in this conference, and it was not good. Texas State plays in the Sun Belt. We are picking them. All right. So if you're still with me, we're going on to our second round matches here. All right. This is where things start to get spicy. Baylor and USC. So USC, 2 gold medal squared programs against each other. When that happens, when the systems are the same, I think maybe you just start looking at individual players, right? And Baylor has the best player in the match, who is Yosiana Presley. USC's pins are really good, though. Baylor's defense is better. Baylor's passing is better. It'll be a close match, but I think they sneak through. This is a very tough second round match for Baylor. Okay. Purdue at Marquette. Ooh. Marquette has been, they had a really good start to the season, but they've been falling off. Purdue has gone the opposite way. They've won 7 of their last 10 in a really strong Big Ten conference. We'll pick Purdue. Kentucky and Michigan. Oh, these are already so tough. I can't believe this. It's like usually it's the third round, Sweet 16, where the matches get tough to pick, but I think Kentucky's a little overrated. I think Michigan's really good. I think Paige Jones is really good. We're going to pick Michigan. Washington and Colorado State. Another tough one. Colorado State is a strong team, and Washington's very inconsistent. I think Washington can pull it out, though. I am rooting for them. I really like watching them play. Kara Bajema is an awesome player to watch. She's very exciting. And their libero has improved a ton. All right. Nebraska and Northern Iowa. I think UNI is good, but I think Nebraska actually smokes them. This is the easiest match to pick so far. I think this is an easier match to pick than Baylor USC, to be honest. Hawaii and San Diego. I'm picking San Diego, 100%. Not just because of the Medils, but I think they're just outright the better team. We'll see if they can... They played earlier this year, actually. How did that match go? I think San Diego lost to Hawaii, but I think they'll win this time. Yeah, they lost in 5. Remember that. Unless Hawaii's home court advantage is that good, I think San Diego beats them. They've done some different things with their lineups and stuff too, so I think they're a much different team. Texas A&M and Rice. I think I could pick another upset here. I don't think the SEC is very strong. Rice has upset Texas. Texas A&M, I watched very briefly. Rice, I haven't seen at all. We'll just pick Rice. Wisconsin at UCLA. This is a really dangerous match for Wisconsin. This is one they could definitely lose, actually. Seriously, these ones are so hard to pick. I don't know. We'll go with Wisconsin. I think... Yeah, this part of the bracket is really rough. UCLA is really good, though. No, I think Wisconsin's physicality will just overwhelm them. They're prone to just like getting blown out 25-12 in any given set, though. They're a very high variance team. Stanford and Georgia, as much as I love Georgia and Tom Black, I have to pick Stanford over them. BYU and Utah. So although BYU is ranked, I would argue that Utah is probably the favorite in this matchup. But I'm going to pick BYU anyways. BYU has beaten Utah already this season. I think they've been improving. Utah might be improving more, so we'll see how much BYU can hold them off. This is going to be a really exciting match. I hope I get to watch it. Penn State and Towson. As much as I love Towson, I think Penn State kind of is... I think Penn State's underranked, to be honest. I think they're a top 8 team for sure, so I'm going to pick them here. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Dennis was saying Wahine home court advantage is legit. I agree with you. I think Hawaii's so much better at home than they are away. I just don't think they're that good of a volleyball team. I think they're really overrated, so that's why I'm picking against them. Pitt at Cincinnati. This is a little bit of a rivalry game too. We'll pick Pitt here. Setting up this matchup, the battle for Pennsylvania. Pitt had never beat Penn State. They'd never been the best team in Pennsylvania until this year. And they get to host too. All right. Oh, they don't get to host this matchup though. It would be Stanford would host the next round. My bad. Minnesota and Creighton, another really tough match. Creighton can definitely challenge Minnesota. Minnesota has played some bad matches this year as well. They got swept by Florida State. Oh, Florida State. Did I pick them over here? Can I change my pick here? Yeah, I'm going to change to Florida State. I remember. Florida State already beat Minnesota this year. And the ex-Minnesota player just wrecked them. She got 600. Okay, so we'll pick Minnesota, but this is an area that there could be an upset. Florida versus Florida State. I don't think Florida's that good. Can I reasonably pick Florida State here, though? This is kind of a weaker part of the bracket. I don't really like any team that comes out of here, but let's just go with Florida State. Another upset. Picking upsets all over the place. Western Kentucky and Louisville. I don't really have a strong sense of this game, but I'm going to pick Western Kentucky to move on. Texas State, I'm going to pick Texas. And we've got our Sweet 16. All right. Baylor and Purdue. I think Baylor's physicality and their system overwhelms Purdue. I could see this going 4 sets, but I don't think Purdue challenges them as much as USC does for some reason. I could be wrong. Michigan and Washington. I think Washington's the better team. That's the team I'd like to see win this game, so I will pick Washington. Nebraska and San Diego. This also went to 5 this year. San Diego lost to Nebraska in 5. But I think that was on a neutral court. San Diego's played some tough teams. They've already played Hawaii and Nebraska. Can I pick them again here? Wisconsin would be hosting if they get through UCLA. So Nebraska wouldn't have home court advantage. Oh. I think this is the toughest regional, this one over here. We've got some really good teams. We'll pick Nebraska. I'm not super confident in that, though. Rice and Wisconsin. We'll pick Wisconsin, although I think Rice could cause them trouble just like UCLA does. Wisconsin's very inconsistent. Oh, Stanford, BYU. BYU's already beat Stanford this year. The way it went last year was BYU beat Stanford at BYU when they were the number one team and then took over their seed, and then they just got wrecked by them in the Final Four. And I could really see that playing out again, to be honest, with Catherine Palmer coming back. But BYU beat Stanford at home already this year. Stanford can look really bad at times. I'm just picking BYU. I don't care. Penn State and Pitt. They're 1-1 this year. This would be a rubber match. There's so many good games this year, guys, in the tournament. I'm so excited. Should I be like canceling practices to watch games? No. Should I be taking vacation days from work to watch games? Yes, I should do that. We'll pick Pittsburgh. Oh, that's so tough. I think Penn State's really good. Yeah, we'll pick Pitt. Okay. Minnesota, Florida State. Oh, this would be another like rematch. There was a kid who transferred from Minnesota to Florida State. They played each other in preseason this year, and Florida State swept Minnesota, gave them their first or second loss of the year. It was a really bad loss. I think Minnesota, I trust in Hugh to make the proper adjustments. Texas and Western Kentucky. We'll pick Texas, just overwhelming them with sheer firepower. Texas is really good this year. Last year, I didn't think they were good, and they made it all the way. Or, not all the way. I guess they lost to BYU, but they made it further than I thought. Texas is always good. There's something to be said by just recruiting the most athletic, hardest hitting outside hitters and middle blockers and right sides you can. Baylor at Washington. So similar to the Baylor-USC matchup where I picked Baylor, this would be such a good match. Oh. We'll pick Baylor again. Nebraska and Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's ranked higher, but I think Nebraska. This is something I don't want to say because I'm like so not this type of person when doing analysis. Like I'd rather look at stats and numbers and all that stuff. But I think Nebraska is just better in big situations. Like they've won 2 national championships in the last 4 years. Wisconsin just crumbles towards the end of sets, like a lot. I've seen that play out a bunch of times this year when I've watched them play. And their loss to Marquette, in their losses to Penn State. Yeah. Dennis. Yeah, I'm just... Oh, how dare you, Dennis? I mean, it's on video, so you're not even misquoting me. I can't even get mad at that. But yeah, I said I'm just picking BYU. I don't care. And Nebraska's more clutch. I hate kind of like the clutch argument. If you talk volleyball or sports with me, you'll know that. BYU and Pittsburgh. Should I just keep picking BYU? Is that crazy? Like it is, but like I've picked them all this way. They could legitimately lose in the second round. They could lose to Utah and just destroy my back. I'm picking them anyways. Minnesota and Texas. I think Texas overwhelms them again. Okay. This is so stupid that I don't have Stanford in the Final Four. Really dumb. But, just going with my heart. Baylor at Nebraska. Also, I'm going to the Final Four for the first time ever, and I'm so excited about it. Christoph got tickets, and he got super good tickets. He bought them last year in November, and I'm so thankful for that. So super excited to go. Him and his wife and Adam, we're going to watch the Final Four together. I know a lot of other people in like the volleyball community in Burlington, especially Hurricanes, are going. So excited to share it with everyone. But we'll be at the Final Four. Whether it's Baylor versus Nebraska or some other match, I'm not sure. But if it is, I'm going to pick Nebraska here. And then I will finally pick BYU to lose. Then we have a Nebraska-Texas final. And we just have to pick the winner now, guys. So, been going for like an hour of me rambling about NCAA tournament teams. We're almost there. Whew. Nebraska and Texas. I hate John Cook so much, but I also don't think Jared Elliott is that good. I want to redo this now. I don't really like what I've done. I should have just picked BYU to win it all. Like, why not? There's no way, though. They're not that good this year. They're actually one of the weaker BYU teams in the last 3 years. They don't have RJP. Guys, I don't know. Should I just pick Baylor to win? No. All right, we're going to go with it. We're going to go with Texas. Winning for the first time since, like, 2011. Peters. Perfect. Predictions is my title. You just got to throw an email address in here, guys. And then you hit submit. And after that's done, you'll get a link that you can copy, which will allow you to save, which I'll do here. This little Word document. You can always go back and change your predictions. And there we go. That is how you fill out your bracket for our Hurricanes NCAA Tournament Bracket Challenge. Looking forward to seeing everyone's predictions. It looks like someone already put one in. Untitled, Adam loves upsets. All right, he's already put one in. I don't know who Untitled is. I can check the email address actually afterwards. But they also have Texas and Nebraska. Oh, this is so spicy. Everyone's picking different teams. This is awesome. Adam with Minnesota. Okay, so thanks for watching. If you've been tuning in, I hope you've enjoyed listening to the selection show, which happened in the first hour, and in the second hour. Oh, it's Nikki's prediction. Cool. That's awesome. I want to see how far she has Towson going. How much faith do you have in your daughter's program? I'm just kidding, Nikki. Yeah, yes. Towson over Penn State. I love it. Oh, man. That would be so awesome if that happens. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, thanks for putting in your predictions, guys. I appreciate it. Again, I am going to buy a bunch of t-shirts when I'm in Pittsburgh this year for the national championship, and I will give the winner a tournament t-shirt as well as a bunch of other things that I can find in at concessions and stuff. Maybe I'll buy a cool hat or something like that. But there'll be lots of cool prizes for people who enter the contest. Again, it's just for fun. There's no money or anything involved, but it's a cool way to keep track of the NCAA tournament, and I'm really excited to share it with you guys. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.